So I'm starting my session with a very nice cup of tea. This tea actually I have sourced from a very small boutique artistic uh, tea estate that is in the vicinity of Thekri in Kerala. So it's aptly called the tea from the elephant estate because Thekri, as you know, is quite famous for their elephant. And this tea they call their orange pekoe tea, and it's very nice, very bold, very strong, extremely energetic. But this kind of tea I like to put little bit of milk, and that's how this tea is with me. Little bit of milk and little bit of sugar free. Perfect afternoon tea for me, and also something to gives you a lot of energy. So when I'm going to talk for 30 minutes, I need energy, and this is the best way. So this tea is available with me. I call this the Thekri Elephant Estate tea, and you can buy this. This is a very beautiful tea. Yep. So today is 4th of July, and I thought I will talk something about tea and stories, keeping in mind 4th of July. But I would not stick to only America for that matter. I'll be talking about the rest of the world as well in terms of tea and how it helped women in their kind of different rights movement. For example, the suffragette movement that I'm going to talk about today. How tea was a very, very important part of the suffragette movement, both in UK as well as in USA, in Canada, in Australia, in New Zealand. Okay, so let me begin by saying that the Declaration of Independence was signed on 4th of July today in 1776. So that's how the Americans celebrate today as their Independence Day. And here is my heartiest congratulations and best wishes to everybody from USA for their hard-earned Independence Day. Now, let me quote something that is very, it's integral part of the Declaration of Independence. And it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness." So in 1976, when the Declaration of Independence actually said all men are created equal, they absolutely meant that all men are created equal. That means the women were not part of that deal. Now, what was the status of women at that time? At that time in USA, the women did not have right to vote. They did not have any right to hold any offices. They did not have rights to go to colleges. They did not have rights to education. And once the women were married, it was such a bad situation for women. They were actually called civil dead. So after a woman gets married at that time, she loses the right on herself. She loses her right on her money. She loses right on any kind of decision making. She is absolutely at the mercy of her husband. So that was the status when during the Independence Day, at the Declaration of Independence sign up, that it was written, and women, along with the slaves, lunatics, and idiots. These are the four kinds of people who had no right to vote: women, slaves, lunatics, and idiots. So these four kind of people were not allowed to vote. They had no rights. They had no legal rights as being themselves. Now, if you know, the abolition of slavery happened sometimes during 1865 or something like that. But of course, it was a much hard-earned thing happened. But the women got the right in America to vote only in 1920. So it was almost 150 years since the Independence Day in USA that women became equal in terms of legal rights as men. It took them 150 years of movement to get to the point to be equal in terms of legal rights. Now, in UK, it took another 10 years for the women to get voting rights. The voting rights for all women above the age of 21 happened only in around 1928, and before that, the women had no rights to vote, no rights to offices, and almost similar to what was happening in USA. Now, let me tell you that this was also happening in Australia, in Canada, and in New Zealand. Now, you'll be quite surprised to know that in New Zealand, all women above the age of 21 were allowed to vote during the year 1893. And in Australia, it was 95. And in 1869 and 1870, there are only two western states of USA who had some selective rights for women to vote. Now, where is tea coming here? We are talking about tea stories. So where is tea that is coming here? Tea, hi. So this entire movement that the women were fighting in Britain, which was reflected back to USA, was the votes for women. So this was a organized movement that women were fighting for, the votes for movement, which was typically their demand to have the rights to vote. Now, it was such a ridiculous thought for men and other people in high positions who could change the law, that one particular journalist in one particular London newspaper, in order to ridicule this movement by the women, an organized movement by the women, to claim their rights to vote, to claim their equal rights in the society, to be able to run business, to be able to do so many other things, he found it so ridiculous that he wrote an article in newspaper and called these women the suffragettes. And therefore, from that time onwards, the women picked up on that particular word and turned it completely on its head and made it into something that we call today the suffragette movement. So let us, if we have to understand how tea played an important role, we have to go back a little back into the history. Now, during the 1680s, England had a big culture of drinking coffees. So during this time, there are a lot of coffee houses that were being set up in London, plenty of coffee houses. And these coffee houses had only one objective. What was that? The men could come and visit these coffee shops. They were called coffee houses. And they could sit there, drink cups and cups of coffee, smoke cigarettes, and discuss business. So this was like a startup discussion place. One of the most famous companies of London, called the Lloyd's London, the insurance company, was formed in one such coffee house. There are stories which says that if you enter a coffee house at the peak time, it would be so filled with smoke that you won't be able to see the person right in front of you. So it was only for men. Only coffee was served, they used to drink the coffee with sugar, and they used to drink and they used to smoke a lot. Now, women were legally barred to enter the coffee houses. They were legally barred. Now, in about 100 odd years, when tea was becoming popular in Britain, these coffee houses started seeing parallels in terms of teas, but not in the way that was happening. So Thomas Twining, who is the founder of Twining Teas a long time back, he built his reputation by his coffee house called the Tom's Coffee House. But he never built a tea house. What he did, he had a small shop next to his coffee house where he used to sell tea, loose leaf tea. So only in 1860 that the first similar kind of tea establishment started popping up in London, in Britain. The first one is called the Harrods Ladies Club. But most of this were called not coffee houses, tea houses like the coffee houses. They were called tea rooms. Now, why were they called tea rooms? Because women until that time could not visit the coffee houses, and when tea were becoming popular in India, the only social activities that women could do is to have tea in their living room with their friends, where the server is also a woman. So they were, in fact, until 1910, women were not allowed to go to restaurants or pubs and tea or coffee houses, and were not served anything until and unless they had a man accompanying them. So the tea was associated with women and coffee was associated with men. And men live in houses, therefore coffee houses, and women only have a room in the house, so it is tea room. So that's how this tea room started popping up in different parts of London. Now, two things happened because of that. Two very important things that happened because of that. One is that when this tea room started popping up in different parts of London, it became a place where only tea is served, of course, but it also became a place where only women are allowed. And it became a social leveler. Like when they're living in their homes, in houses, there's a class, there's a very, very strict British class, right? The strata of the society, the class, there's a class divide. But the moment you enter a tea room, that class divide vanished. It became a completely class leveler. And also it became a place for people, for women from different classes, from different strata, from different societies to come and meet and sit at the same table, drinking tea and discussing the problem that was bugging them the most. What was that? Their right to have equal rights as men, their rights to vote, and all other social injustices that were happening to women at that time. So tea rooms became a place for women of different classes of the society to come together and discuss the problems that they were facing day to day. Now, what was happening with the women who were still sitting in their tea rooms and drinking tea? They also found a way that if we cannot go to a tea room, or we cannot go to a coffee house or something like that, the only thing that I can do is organize small tea afternoons where I will call people, like-minded people, to come and to discuss things that matter to us the most. Now, this became so powerful and this became so inspirational that this was copied from Britain to USA by the women, because there also the women were fighting for this cause. Now, lot of people in USA and in UK, what they did, if they had a small space right outside their home, they will create a small tea room, and they will also serve tea in their living room and stuff like that. Why tea? Because tea was associated with women anyway, and they were not allowed to ask for business loans, so they cannot do any other businesses other than tea. And tea was socially acceptable, that women can do something with tea. So tea became the only source of work, inspiration, uh, earnings, everything for enterprising women, both in USA and in UK. Now, very interesting thing happened at this time. So the car was introduced sometimes in 1920 in USA, and 8 million cars were introduced in USA. Now, car was not used those days to go to work, to go to office. It was mainly used to use it as a recreational purpose, to go and travel outside the cities and stuff like that. So people started driving or out of the city a lot, and a lot of these people went to the rural areas in USA where small tea shops, tea rooms were there, run by women, and those tea rooms slowly became a place where people would go and eat and drink and have their breakfast, have their lunch, have their dinner, and stuff like that. And the small startups run by the small rural women as tea rooms started to flourish, and they also started feeling very emancipated because of that. Right now, but uh, this was much later. Lot of things were happening otherwise in terms of tea. Now, I'll give you couple of examples. For example, Catherine Preston's Velo Room in Glasgow, in Scotland. That was one of the most visited, talked about place. Francis Virginia's tea establishment in Atlanta during 1920s served almost 1% of Atlanta's population at that time, and she was a very good employer. And during Depression, she actually fed almost over 1 million people from her tea business. Now, tea became the main startup theme in US and UK for women at that time. It also became the place for organizing, mobilizing, educating, and collaborating for social reforms. So not only tea was the biggest business idea for all women because they had no other things to do other than working with tea, it also became the place to collaborate, to organize, to educate, and fight for their one single idea, right to vote. So tea, so tea rooms and tea in a way became the only place where women could meet together without men being accompanying them. And as I said earlier, it was also the place where they could talk, they could discuss about the issues that was happening. Now there are some very interesting people who helped run this movement, to help organize this movement and make this movement very, very successful. And they are so much associated with tea. For example, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She used to organize movements. She used to organize small talks and small, gatherings. And everywhere she would carry her 3 feet tall traveler table. She used to have a 3 feet tall tea traveler table, and she will carry that with her in all these meeting places and conferences and etc. Serve tea and discuss about the problems that they wanted to discuss. And she is one of the most inspiring women in the history of British suffragette movement. Now, she had a role model, and that role model was in 1774 in London. And she was the first, and her role model's name is Penelope Barker. And Penelope Barker actually had the first tea party called the Edmonton Carolina Tea Party. Uh, and she also was the first woman to organize the first organized protest by women against the British Empire. She is the first woman. There were a lot of protests that had happened in the colonies against this, but she was the first woman in 1770 to have organized protest against the empire, which is completely by women. So she also has a very prominent role in the history of the women movement in Britain. Now, back to USA, in New York, there was this very famous actress called Mary Shaw. She was an actress, she was a playwright, and she used to use tea and theater to mobilize her community and raise their voices. Then there was another lady called Alva Benton. She was a very rich and wealthy person, and she used to use her wealth to create tea places like tea rooms and etc., and to host events, tea events, where she would host the sympathizers for this movement, where sympathizers, the organizers, the donation givers, people like that would come. And then there was a very interesting lady called Emily Pankhurst. Emily Pankhurst was this lady in London. She would make sure that she will create such a scenario in London that the press will get the photographs to show that the establishment is actually, how cruel they were to these women. So she will chain herself, and she will, park herself in front of the police station. She will chain herself and show that she is like been chained by the government and stuff like that. She will do all kind of weird activity to generate a lot of noise and ideas, and make sure she will do it in a way that the press rushes to her, clicks pictures, and put it in the newspaper. That was her way of contributing to this movement. And she was using tea rooms as guerrilla outpost for her guerrilla outpost. So these tea rooms became also the places for active, what do I call, a police arrest, or they knew that the establishment and the police and government identified tea rooms as the places where problems were being created, that the problem creators, the problem makers sit there. So those became the attraction of lot of hostilities by the establishment. The tea rooms became the spot of attraction for these people. Now, tea rooms in London and New York were slowly becoming the walking tours for feminists, social activists, actresses, journalists, fundraisers, and organizers. So if you want to be part of this movement, you can walk into any tea rooms in London or in New York, and you will be given a tour to show who are the people sitting there and what they are discussing. And it was not only open to women; it was open to men also, because a lot of men also participated in that. But the decision of who they will let in and who will not let in was entirely managed by the women at this point of time. And all these activities over the period of 150 years led to the 1920, August 18, when women got the right to vote in USA, and in 1928 in Britain that the women got the right to vote, any women who were above 21 years of age. It has been a very long, very hard fought freedom that they have got, the women of this world have got at that time. I will end this storytelling session with one particular fact which is so mind-boggling, which was so mind-boggling. When I was doing my research, I was so shocked and so amazed that this could happen. There was something called pink teapots. Pink teapots were marketed by a brand called Famous Five, and they were in Canada. And they were marketing this pink teapots sometimes during early 90s in as a way to increase awareness that women to be legally declared as persons. Women were not even considered as persons, a legal word, person, in Canada for a long, long time. And they were selling these pink teapots to raise awareness for this. You can go to the internet, you can go to the Google and search for pink teapots. You will see some black and white pictures of that with marking on it. And it's so mind-boggling to know that what all the women have to suffer and what all they have to do just to get the right to vote. And interestingly, all these countries that I have talked about are British colonies and Britain herself. And tea. So tea was such an important part of this movement. A startup, a business idea, tea rooms, a place to talk, place to come, share their pains, share their stories, share their ambitions, and fight from a tea room or fight with a tea, with their, like for example, the 3-foot tea table, tea amphitheater, tea rooms and tea events, that women got what they wanted at last. So that's the story for today. It was such a, for me, when I was doing research for this story, I had some ideas about it, but what I read, I just gave you only a very, very brief about what was happening. But if you go through the stories, you will be surprised that how much the women have to suffer all over the world to reach where they are today, and still the fight is not over, it's going on. I hope the tea provides strength and support and friendship, loyalty to everybody who defends tea. Yes, Hafsa, a lot of research has gone into this. I had this skeletal idea when I was doing it, but now for this particular today's storytelling, I had to go much depth into that, get the names of the women who have actually played such big roles and made a difference. So lot of things make sense now that I understand it when I watch movies and read literature. I always had certain questions that why it was like this, and a lot of those things today make sense after I have done this quite an in-depth research about it. Yeah. And I think it's quite a, what do I say, good idea to have a tea from Kerala in India, which has typically a matriarch society in India. Though of course there are a lot of other stories around, but it's good to have a tea from Kerala in India to talk about the women's suffrage movement and and tea.